All the Juggalos in recovery.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sober, also known as Frank, and quite a few other names. I'll be running this very special meeting tonight. Juggalos in Recovery is about the community in recovery. There is no judging here. Everyone is unique, and so is their recovery. Our topic is going to be rolled tonight on this. Let's see. On this Juggalo Improvement Meeting List. We at Juggalos in Recovery created it. I will explain it here in a second. Please feel free to talk about your experience. This meeting is about an hour long. For any newcomers, we appreciate the strength and humility you bring to the meeting. We are happy you are here. Now, let's roll. All right. So as you can see here, instead of having to randomly pick a meeting from the top of our heads, we will roll a d6, which is a regular 6-sided dice, to choose from that category list. And then we will roll the magic d30 to choose from these lists. If we really want to spice it up, we will roll a d12 and add a step to it. Now, if we roll a 13 or a 17 on our d30 roll, we will re-roll. So say we roll a 13 here, we will have that topic, tell the group how you healed from the worst mental pain you dealt with, and then we roll again. We roll off of that column here, and then we add another topic into it. So for tonight, let's see what we roll. We got a 3. 3 is life. That is a 9. 9 is dealing and experiencing big events and holidays. So it's probably a good topic to have since we're coming up on holiday season.
9 is exposure to triggers.
Oh, yeah, sorry. 9. Thank you, Chris. Just come in whenever you want and correct me. I appreciate that.
It's my job.
All right. So exposure to triggers. How do you deal with them? There is a reason why there is no descriptions for the meeting topics. It's because we are very unique people. We have our own way of processing those little deals, those little topic suggestions. So with that, I will stop screen sharing. So our topic tonight is exposure to triggers. So exposure to triggers. I've had a few of them over my sobriety. I think one of the biggest ones that caught me off guard was, so my sobriety date is July 5th of 13. And what year was it? It was the very first 4th of July I spent with Stacy. And up until that point, I had never really celebrated the 4th of July. Just became a hermit, secluded, solitary, whatever you want to call it. And I didn't realize until the point of that night that I had unconsciously avoided going out on the 4th of July because it was a trigger for me, because that was the night I went to jail. It's the night I got all into trouble and everything. And I threw myself into an anxiety attack because of it, because I saw someone drinking alcohol that I thought was my favorite drink. And it was a very bad moment. Um, so exposures to triggers can come out of the blue, but also on the flip side of that, when I was a month and a half sober, I decided I wanted to go play pool, and the only pool tables in the area was at a bar. So a month and a half sober, I decided I was gonna go play some pool, and it didn't bother me at all. I had some caffeine, some energy drinks, and I went along with it. So there's good and bad to every aspect of this. Let's talk about some of the things y'all have experienced when it comes to triggers, whether it's how you dealt with the trigger, or a trigger that caught you off guard, or a trigger that you thought wasn't going to bother you but ended up bothering you, or the other way around. Um, whatever you can think of, let's talk about it.
So I guess I'll start this off since nobody else is talkative tonight. Um, 2 years ago, the first year that I helped co-host the Juggalos and recovery meetings at the gathering, we ended up having to run a meeting early in the morning. And as soon as the meeting ended, we had another group that was coming in from the Epic Quest Random Adventures YouTube channel, and they were hosting a drinking tournament directly after running the sober meeting, and that was a trigger I really wasn't anticipating dealing with, but that one was a little difficult. But in true fashion to how we normally handle our issues, we ended up doing shots of water instead of shots of vodka. So, well, we just flipped the script and replace it with something that was acceptable.
Yeah, I like that. So, all right. So with that, since um, I'm feeling frisky tonight, where's my book at? I'm going to roll for a step as well. Get my dice out to add it to this. Give me more direction.
You got a pocket full of dice,
I came prepared.
nerd.
I got my 12, my 6, and my 30. Step 10. I know step 10. Step 10 is we continue to fix our mistakes daily as soon as we realized that we messed up. So if you mix exposure to triggers with step 10, I would have to go back to that same experience of the 4th of July. I had a lot of making up to do. I made a lot of people uncomfortable. My emotions came on very strong, very sudden, and I ended up lashing out. Um, it took me and Stacy a little bit to recover from it. Um, in the end, I think it brought us closer together, but in the moment, it sucked a lot. Um, but I also think that with step 10, you're able to, as long as, so step 10 to me is being actively self-aware. So if you're actively self-aware of what's going on, with your brain, your emotions, mentally, emotionally, all that stuff, then you'll be able to point out which triggers are affecting you at what time. And you'll be able to catch them a lot sooner than people who aren't actively self-aware. And I know that's kind of blah and straightforward, but it's just how it is. So step 10 has a huge impact on how your triggers affect you, because I've noticed, at least for myself, when you walk into an unknown situation, mentally, emotionally, I have to prepare myself for everything. And by preparing myself for everything, I just have the way I deal with it, and I open myself up to accepting the reality of whatever I walk into. And once I accept that reality, I walk into that situation and I deal with it. I accept it, I deal with it, and if I have any issues or anything, then I find a way to deal with those issues right then and there. And that's what step 10 to me is about, is dealing with whatever comes up right then and there, not letting them sit in your brain and fester. Um, so it's very interesting that step 10 came with uh, this topic. Very, very interesting.
Yo,
Go ahead, D. Knock it out of the park.
I can't even knock it out of the park because I've missed most of the meetings and I might have the most controversial view on this topic
That would make my brain happy. So go for it.
because triggers is something taught in treatment centers, right? But to me, triggers is just a weak ass excuse to go do what you want to do. It's a reservation. There's no such thing as a trigger. Like you were talking about, you went to a bar in early recovery. I've been going and shooting pool halls since early recovery, right? It's either the obsession and the craving has been lifted because I put in a work in a program to have it lifted, right? Or the obsession and the craving to drink and drug is still there for me, right? And it means if I don't do something to get rid of this obsession and craving, I'm going to drink and drug again, right? But when I put in the footwork to make myself a better person and to grow better, and I'm working a program of action through a 12-step program, there's no such thing as a trigger. If anything, the gathering would be the most place I would ever been triggered, and I've been offered everything in the world when I was there, and it didn't bother me none. I was happy being sober, doing my thing. And I even go to like a cigar bar sometimes where they're doing cocaine in a bathroom just to smoke a cigar, listen to music, and watch everybody having fun. I'm the longer I stay sober, the thought of having a drink is repulsive. It's not. It's more even repulsive than thinking about it. It's just like to think to to think what I would do to my life again, and to think about having that in my system makes me like gag sometimes. You know what I'm saying? Like I wouldn't want to go back to that way of living because I know where I was at. So for me, I guess this is a hard topic because I don't believe in them.
Well,
Like
see,
I know I used to use
that
every excuse in the world to go get high and get drunk, but you could call that a trigger. I got into a fight with my old lady. I'm going to go drink at you. But by drinking at you, I was punishing myself. You know what I mean? So
for me in my situation, I can agree with what you said. I think a lot of triggers are just excuses. For me, it was an unknown thing that I had been sheltering myself from, that exposure on a certain day. The minute I saw it and dealt with it, that is when that mental and emotional trauma went away. So
I
that
also think the bottle triggered you too, because
it did.
that started it.
So in that aspect, I don't think trigger would be the right word. I think it would be a
fear.
trauma. Yeah, it would be a
It's fear.
fear trauma based reaction to a situation. So for me, that's what I call triggers, something that I'm afraid of mentally that I haven't prepared myself for.
Yeah, I can guess you can call it a trigger in that sense. I'm just because I guess I've been doing the schooling for this, and where
Yeah.
I'm used to it, working in the
Mm-hmm.
field, what people say, and I'm like, that's just a fear. It's a fear that
Mm-hmm.
if I'm in this environment long enough, I'm gonna fuck up. Right.
Yeah.
Or like
But
even I get it. My dad, his first few years sober, you couldn't have a drop of alcohol in his house. You couldn't even drink in front of him because he
my
was
dad's felt the same way
afraid.
too.
Yeah, he was afraid that if that kept happening,
Mm-hmm.
he was gonna get drunk. But now, like, my mom can have wine in the fridge and he'll never think about touching it. Right. Eventually
Mm-hmm.
the fear is removed, but that comes through doing work on yourself, right?
See,
Overcoming those things.
and see, one of those things that you said, triggers are, no, I forget exactly how you put it, learned or whatever. To me, something you said triggered that thought in my head. So when I was going to AA meetings, triggers were brought up all the time, and they were explained in
Not
so many
down here.
different ways. And for me, once I got out of going to AA meetings and I started going to meetings that suited my mental state and my emotional state,
Mhm.
it helped me understand that that was literally programming my brain to be afraid of situations that I had no control over when they preach to let go of that control and be the serenity prayer. So,
I guess we're in two different places. The rooms
oh
of
yeah.
AA and DAA and stuff down here. Trigger is an excuse to do what the fuck you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way we look at it. Like, it's an irrational fear. It's a
Mm-hmm.
justification that you tell yourself to go get drunk and high. Now, I do believe in PTSD aspect, something like you're in a thing that brings a flashback of trauma. That is totally that is a brain thing. That is not a learned behavior. That is a lived experience where being in that same situation sets that off. But when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to the drink and the drug, the not the mental aspect, but the obsession and the craving to want to drink and get high, like we we use whatever excuse to justify why we did what we did again, when if we're really honest with ourselves, we don't know why we're drinking and getting high. Usually it's like we just lost our motivation for whatever
Mm-hmm.
it is in life, right? It's a lack of motivation or a lack of too many stressors at one time on our plate, and we're
Or
not
or it
helping
could also
ourselves
just
or
be
others.
complacency.
Yeah, that too.
Because I've
Yeah.
come to quite a few roads in my sobriety where I got complacent in sobriety, where I wasn't working on myself, pay attention to what I was doing, and those cravings started coming back. And with that, I started, well, it was pointed out to me quite a few times by someone in this room, um,
That has their
that,
hand up.
no, not that one, the other one that's a pain in my ass. Um, but it's one of those things. It's really interesting. I think a lot of people use triggers as excuses, and I also think the way people are taught what triggers are wrong in a sense. When
Yes.
I when
Yes.
I personally am talking about triggers, I'm talking about those mental and emotional triggers like PTSD and trauma-based triggers and how to deal with them.
Which
Not,
is
oh,
totally
well, being
different.
around, yeah, exactly. Not, not using the trigger as an excuse to go out and drink a drug. Like you'll see thousands and thousands of people come in for a month or two and be like, oh, I got triggered. And then, they put themselves in a situation where they feel like they couldn't get out of when all they could have done was just walk away. So what I personally am talking about is the trauma-based triggers. Like
Mm.
that's a huge part of recovery is being mentally and emotionally well. So how to deal with those emotional and mental triggers and how to rehabilitate your mind and your emotional state with those triggers so they don't
Yeah.
affect you anymore.
Therapy, healthy coping mechanisms, a network of people to vent and talk to get different perspectives. Like that's a whole different avenue. And like we
Yeah.
don't like I don't stay sober in a good mental state or spiritual state off of what I did a week ago, 2 weeks ago, a month ago when you're talking about the complacency. If I don't do something every day, whether it's meditation or prayer or talk to somebody or do something, like I could be fine one day and total fucking train wreck the next day, right?
Mhm.
Because it's like continual growth and development of who we are as a person that has to take place to
Exactly.
deal with those things.
Exactly. But with that, go ahead, Chris.
All right. So to me, triggers are just it's a mental thing, but drinking and drugging literally just relates back to coping mechanisms. So triggers being around something, being an environment that you were using to, you know, do whatever your coping mechanism was totally makes sense to me when that's the only thing that you ever learn to deal with the stressor that you're dealing with. It's only through better mental health that any of us ever remained sober, which Brian and you were both getting at. But it's something that a lot of people just don't think about is what these triggers are actually about. Why is it that these triggers only happen when you're in this specific type of environment or under this specific level of stress? And how do you deal with that going forward?
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. Go ahead, Stacey.
Sorry. Um, so, you know, I don't deal with the same shit. God damn it. That y'all deal with, but at the same time, I do deal with triggers in the emotional, not runaway aspect. But I think that I've used mental abuse and physical abuse from exes and to fill voids. I have a lot of animals
A
and
lot.
you know, I grew up with a lot of animals, but like it was a bunch of different animals, not just, cats, and I have a lot of cats. But I've realized like that mentally, I've talked to a couple of different doctors about it, but people that tend to have more than one cat, more than a doctor says more than 3 cats.
She has like 9.
Henry, shut up. Go. I'm talking.
Mom, you have like 9 million.
Shut up. But I do know that after talking to a couple of different doctors that the chemical imbalance that I don't know about men, but that women can get and tend to leech on to animals more than people, and that's not healthy. I've realized that because I've realized how much I would rather be around my animals than people. And I'm an extrovert. I'm not an introvert, but it's because of all the crap I've dealt with my exes. And it's hard to deal with.
It's hard to deal with on the other side of it too.
Yo,
What are you talking about?
You?
yo.
Go ahead, Brian.
All right. So this is the other thing when like, I guess if you're going to talk about triggers in the mental and spiritual aspect, it's easy when we don't do things to work on them to transplant those past experiences and transfer them onto somebody else. Like think the patterns are going to repeat itself over and over again. And I suffered with mental health for quite a while. So I was on meds. I seen a therapist. I had a psych doctor. I had all types of different avenues to help me in early recovery that probably, if I didn't do those, would have led to another drink or a drug, because my mental health was so overbearing that I wouldn't have known how to handle situations without a network of people or even specialists to help me in early recovery. So, like, some things take a group of people to help us overcome them, and us as a community need each other to overcome certain things. Just not everybody has the right experience for what somebody else is going through. That's why you have a network, so you can find those people that have dealt with certain things in your life, right? I know I had to have different people for all different types of situations that I know I could talk to and trust to help me with this area or that area. It's never the same person, though, that I have to go to every single time about everything, because not everybody's been through the same things I have.
Go ahead, Josie.
But sharing effects on nonsense and bullshit from other people when they don't want to help themselves, I would say, from both sides of that is no fun. Because I'm not going to go into everything I'm explaining, but I'll just say, yeah, not fun. But I've learned a lot of cool shit that I wasn't really paying attention to because of everything I was going through and trying to figure out how myself to cope. And I found out some good shit, but I'm not saying anything because I don't know what's going on with it, but I'll just say, yeah, I'm staying in my house. That's why I'm not out vaping during a meeting because, yeah, fuck being outside when I don't have fam around. Not fun, not safe. So, yeah, I'm good until I figure out the whole entire plan of nonsense in life at this point. That's why I'm kind of quiet as fuck because I'm listening to all the nonsense in the building of the banging of shit. And I don't, at this point, I have no idea who it is or what's going on, but I'm good. I'm staying inside and gonna color because that's fun and a coping skill and probably gonna play with my psychopath hamster.
There you go. So, dealing with I love how there's in the American language there are multiple definitions for one word. And then there are unspoken definitions for words. And it all depends on the community that you're a part of. And if you look at it from a different perspective, as juggalos, we know that we are not a threat to society. It's just who we are. But from an outsider's perspective, who knows nothing about the culture, nothing about where we came from, why we do what we do, anything like that, we're a threat. The same thing goes with triggers. From an outsider's perspective, who doesn't have the knowledge and the wisdom to understand trigger is something that you have no control over until you accept that it's there and you find a way to deal with it. Find a way to heal from that trauma that caused that trigger. And then you also have that other group of people who abuse the system, which use the triggers to use the triggers to go and go back out or find an excuse and all that stuff. So we have in the Juggalo community, we have people like that too, who abuse the Juggalo name and abuse the community. And they use us for clout or they use us to get ahead in life or whatever the case is. One of the things I love about this group is the fact that we have found the people who are willing to dive into the system and break the stigma that comes along with our community. if you look at the 5 people that are in this room, we are all different people. Every one of us have different backgrounds. We're all across the whole United States. And yet we are all talking about the same thing, deal with very similar, if not almost exact same issues. And we're living a very happy life, at least to some degree. If it's not external happiness, it's internal happiness, where you know that you can take care of yourself and you can heal from your past and you can appreciate the small things in life. So, go ahead.
I would actually say, and there's complete people that use the system and use us to cover up their fuck ups and not want to admit for their fuck ups and own up to them, to their fuck ups at all, because they're not ready. They don't know how. They don't know how to deal with their triggers. They don't know how to be left without anyone and being taken away from their support, and then gaining them back and gaining that trust and then losing it again multiple times.
Yeah, and there's people in not just Juggalos in Recovery, there's people across every program that does that. I don't know how many times I've seen people go back and forth, in and out, in and out, in and out. Go ahead, G. What were you gonna say?
So I've been both parts of that coin, right? People will be like, why are you the way you are? Oh, it's because I'm a fucking juggalo, right? Just batshit crazy, dirtball, fucking scumbag piece of shit. Yeah. And then I've been, hey, I've seen juggalos that went on to be attorneys, went to law school, met firefighter juggalos, all types of stuff, right? So there's always bad apples in every bunch, basically, is what it is. And we were talking about the different type of triggers. Like, you see that all nowadays. People use some excuse of why they go and burn and flip shit, burn shit down, flip out, lose their fucking minds. That's because they can't control their own emotions, and there's something in there that they have to work on. If something that somebody says or does bothers you that much to make you go completely insane, then that's a personal thing, right? And the only time juggalos lose our shit and are a threat to society is when we see rebel flags. Then we might burn some shit, specifically that flag.
It's not just juggalos.
Yeah, you too. See, non-juggalo in the room that works in treatment said he'll burn a rebel flag too. Fuck that.
So let's take this topic a little bit further.
Don't come to my house then, Bryant.
She's from Georgia. She loves her rebel flag.
I mean, my old lady's family's from Georgia, but they don't do the rebel flag thing. I guess they're newer in the sticks, Georgian people, but there is definitely a Klan church in that city.
I mean,
But I'd
yeah,
have to say,
too.
oh, sorry, go ahead. As I say, there is one thing I would say about that. There is a positive and negative to that. I would say fuck it and burn it if it's the fucking negative aspect and some of the assholes that I know that are behind it. Not completely against it, but against some of the people and some fucked up things that some of them have done. And that's why I'd burn it.
And see,
So it's not all of it.
Yeah, and see, that's the song that ICP was they were talking about that side of it. There's always two sides to every story. Those people who use that flag as a reason not to grow and understand other cultures or other people, those are the types of people who fly the rebel flag who deserve to have their flag burnt. My wife is purely not like that. She's the complete opposite of all that crap. But with this topic, it seems to me I see a trend going here. You got two sides to every coin. So what are some of the things that y'all have seen or dealt with in sobriety where at first you had one understanding of it, and then after you took a step back and you looked at it, had another perspective on it and was able to um, see the other side of that coin. Chris, your turn.
I'm always right. I never see things that way.
No, that's not enough. Keep going.
It's, there's been plenty of times that I've been in the wrong and have had to have my viewpoint changed forcibly, but those are few and far between. I'm very much so quick on my feet when it comes to adapting. So I really can't think of anything off the top of my head.
Not even when you first got clean.
You know, even when I first got clean, I just kind of isolated myself. So there wasn't much of an impact that way.
So have you seen anybody else go through it? Where, yeah, because I know you have a lot of deep conversations with a lot of people. And so have you ever seen someone else be like, oh, well, now I see what you're saying, and then they start quote unquote flipping the script and start understanding where the other person was coming from or why people take it a different way or whatever.
I like I've seen it, but in practice, it's very hard to change somebody's mind that's already had it made up.
Mm-hmm.
As even when presented with facts, most people don't want to see things any other way than the way that they've already seen them. So, you know, I can tell people that things are one way, but most people aren't about flipping the script. Most people are very much so set in their ways, and you have to try to find a way to navigate their ways in a way that makes sense to them without completely changing things around on them.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest one was just learning how to interpret the Morton's list things that we've had to do, where we've had to completely rearrange the script on how games have to end up being played. And most people are okay with that because that's all fun and games. But when it comes to serious things, I have a harder time of convincing people to look at things slightly differently.
Yeah, makes sense. Anybody else?
I kind of missed what was just said because I'm listening and paying attention to shit.
So the theme that I see going on in this meeting is that there's two sides to every story. So we're talking about how we've either personally dealt with it or have seen someone else go through that change of being able to see the other side of that coin.
Oh, I could say I'm dealing with that right now. There's two sides to a door. One side that needs to stay closed and one side that thinks it should open and it's not going to happen and people around don't understand. And you can have the positive side of someone shouldn't be there and they should listen. And there's people thinking, oh, it's okay. Let them in. Let them open the door. Nope, not happening.
That's one way to put it. That's quite literal. Anybody
Frank, roll
else?
us another topic.
All right. Give me 1 second. Frank, go ahead, babe. Sorry, I was doing something else. I didn't see your hand up.
Okay, so you know how like you brought up, or D or somebody brought up about how they're stop it, I'll punch you in the fucking face.
Timmy.
Not really. I know, I would never do that to you.
Timmy
You know about alcohol in their house and shit.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's like the same thing with like your dad, because you tried that same thing with me too. Of there's not going to be any alcohol in the house, and I said, no, that's not fair. I'm not an alcoholic. You are, but I won't have your triggered, the thing that makes you upset and stuff, that alcohol in the house out of respect for you. But it's not fair for me to have to change every bit of myself to be with you. And you're not changing anything about yourself, this being at the beginning, to be in the relationship
Mm-hmm.
and make it even. And god dang, that took like 5 years. Like, holy shit. But I mean, it took you a hot minute, but then it's kind of like one of those things that it's like an aha moment when you finally see it.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a few of those.
So I rolled another topic. I got category 4, addiction roadblocks, and being closed-minded. It literally goes right into what we're talking about now. So how does being closed-minded... Don't tell me to wait. Who do you think you are? Oh, this must be a good one because he's getting up and going outside.
I gotta take
Not
this guy
fair.
to his
You're
new
not
house real
allowed to
quick
go
and I'll be right
outside because
there.
I can't go in
All right.
my freaking outside at all.
So being
It's funny because
closed-minded.
what I was gonna share links into your new role.
Oh. Well, when you're ready, I'm going to fill in the blank until you're ready. So there's been so many times, even before I even moved to New Mexico, where I was closed-minded. And boy, did I hit those roadblocks. They are devastating. And a lot of the times I didn't even realize I was being closed-minded. I was just so set in my ways from how I used to be as an addict that I thought it was normal the way I was acting. One of the big things that helped me in early recovery is the AA meeting group I went to. It was called Club How. Honest, open-minded, and willing. And about 6 to 8 months in, I realized how powerful those 3 words are. You can talk whenever you want, D.
All right, so your question before you re-rolled, you were asking in your recovery, basically seeing 2 different sides of a coin, right?
Mm-hmm.
So before sobriety or even like coming around the 12 steps programs, I was completely I used to call it atheist, but I always believed there was something. I was agnostic, so I was without knowledge, right? So I went from completely unspiritual to the fullest to a spiritual life, which took open-mindedness. I went from being the liar, the cheat, the thief, to being the honest, compassionate person and trying to be there for people, which is 2 opposites that I had to learn through my sobriety, of being a different person, changing my whole way of life, right? And I've seen firsthand what a program or recovery or a 12-step program to make a person better, because that's all, doesn't matter. The 12-step program is about making somebody into a better person, working on their defects and growing as a human, right? And I've seen the most racist, homophobic people working in my environment become nothing like that at all, right? From closed-minded to open-mindedness, like you were saying, right? Honest, open-minded willingness, which is kind of funny because this is what I was thinking about. Then you did the role, and I'm like, you basically become you, but polar opposite when you're growing and changing, right? Because most of us, like especially me, when I was in my addiction, I was I was fucking terrible, right?
Mhm.
So I literally became a flip of a coin on all the things that I believed in, felt, and thought, right? Because when I was out there, there was no moral line that I wouldn't cross if times got bad enough. And now there's these complete opposites that I stand by no matter what, you know, honesty and open-mindedness and willingness and being of service and being committed to certain things, you know, like I wasn't reliable a lick. I might be into work an hour late all the fucking time till you fire me. You know what I mean? Like to being the one that's relied on, right? You couldn't trust me with a penny, but I get trust with thousands of dollars. You couldn't trust me to show up on time when I say I was going to, but I'm always early. Like those kind of things, right? Polar opposite flip of the coins. I always been like a free thinker and open-minded because I grew up in like a giant melting pot. I had friends of every variety. So when it comes to that aspect, different, you know, but being a person of integrity was something I had to learn in recovery that I became into, you know, changed into that wasn't there beforehand, which just leading that kind of life changes so many different characteristics, right? That you never thought you could do. Because you would ask me, like, because I have 4 years in November, I'll have 4 years. Like, if you would ask me 4.5 years ago, like, what I thought of life, like, fuck the world, burn everything down. Every human fucking sucks. I hate everybody. I hate myself. I hate everything. That was my view, right?
Mhm.
You know what I like? I love everybody. I love Earth. You know, there's so many good people. Sucks that there's a few assholes out there that ruin it and, you know, make people think this way about a whole group of people, right? Because that's usually
Mhm.
what it is. You have a few bad experiences, like I was saying before, and you transfer them onto everything else because it's something you haven't grown and healed from, right? And I know I've said this in past meetings. The good thing about being in any type of 12-step program, especially Juggalos in Recovery, was we get a chance to grow and become the best versions of ourselves. Whereas most normal people that don't do like an Al-Anon or a 12-step or don't know people that are in recovery never change out of anything in their way. They're just stuck.
Mhm. And I see nothing wrong with it.
Exactly.
And that's how that's how I used to be. I was like, oh, well, there's nothing wrong with how I'm being. If you don't fucking like me, then fuck you. And that's how I still kind of to this day do that about me as a person. Because not because I don't want people to like me or not because I don't care. It's because I realize that I'm not everybody's cup of tea and I'm done changing for everybody else. I have finally got comfortable in my own skin. And that's something that only sobriety has ever given.
I mean, I agree with you there. I've always been not everybody's cup of tea. I've changed to be a better person, so I am more people's cup of tea than I ever
Mm-hmm.
used to be. Not the unwanted hanger on, you know, which is a good feeling, but I'm still the same. Like, if you don't like me, I'm not here to please you. So whatever. Like, I'm not gonna force you to like me. You know,
Exactly.
not
And
looking for anybody's approval because I feel good about myself and with myself, and I can lay my head on my pillow and go to sleep at night knowing I'm an okay person.
see, back in my active addiction, it got to the point to where I almost made a game out of how many people I could piss off and how many people I could get to hate me. That's exactly like I'm where I'm at now. One of the guys I'm working with was on my very first trip with me. And I've only been with this company 6 years, so I was 3 years sober when I started working here. When I first start my very first trip, I was with this guy, and to this day, he still thinks, and well, there's proof that I can piss people off if I have the chance. I had a very high-ranking member of the military come into my office after a very long day of work in 150 degrees to try to chat. I was like, what do you want? Why are you in my tent? Why are you in my office? He stormed out of that tent. Who the fuck is Frank? just across the whole line until someone came and talked to him. All because they just didn't want to listen to his bullshit because he was trying to get on the contract with us after he retired. And he was some guard guy somewhere else, whatever. The moral of the story is, I still have those times. I still had those personality traits when I got sober. I just had to learn to either one, get rid of them completely, or two, use them in a different way that helps me be a better person. Go ahead, D.
It's funny because we're so fucking similar in so many aspects. Because I was that abrasive person too. I am gonna fuck the world. I'm gonna piss the world off. And if you don't like me, even fucking better. You want to fight about it or not? Like I told people, I'm like, I'm very abrasive, and I am on purpose. Like, if I could say something to get under your skin and you get offended, even fucking better.
Oh yeah, if the line
did
was
that- I
here,
did that
I would
same
be
shit.
over here.
I'm gonna say the most. Oh, you don't like the word cunt? I'm gonna say it. You know, that kind of guy. You know, so I was abrasive maliciously because I fed off the chaos and the fighting and the anger, and that was my whole thing, like to feed the beast. You know, I did that for years, and it's crazy that was the life I was leading, and come to a polar opposite. You know, I can joke and be, but I know where to stop with certain people, right? You can't have that same level with everybody. You know, I have my friends every time we see a group of friends, and when we see each other, like, fuck you, right? And then we walk up and hug each other. That's the relationship. That's how we are. You know, we can be a little more brutal with each other because that's the friendship, right? But then I like you said, you got to learn how to use those things from assets. Like, I don't have to be a dick to push you away or not deal with you because it's an unhealthy situation, right? I could just cut myself off from that and be perfectly fine and not need the unhealthiness to feed the drama and the ego or whatever, or think I won. I'm not trying to win anything anymore, right?
And see, that's one of the things that I realized was the way I was brought up, the household I lived in, one of the things I was so used to was the negative, toxic environment that I was in. So when I got older and when I got into active addiction, I created that toxic atmosphere because that's what I was comfortable with. That's all I knew. That's what I wanted. And I made it my life goal to be the best at it. Now I realize that was wrong, and I had to make a couple hundred amends, because I was that big of an asshole. And it's gotten to the point now to where I create the environment around me to where it's the complete opposite of how I used to be, what I grew up in, what I used to know. If it's an environment, if it starts feeling comfortable to me, I know that I'm doing something wrong. Until I know that comfortable is a good thing. Like how our household is ran. It was not comfortable even in the slightest for me in the beginning. And there's still aspects of it that's extremely uncomfortable to me. But I know that I'm on the right track because no one's getting hurt mentally, emotionally, or physically. No one's getting pushed to their limits. No one's being abused. It's all calm and serene. And that's the kind of environment I need around.
I think it goes with the saying, when you're tired, right? When you're ready, right? When you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, right? It even comes with like your own lifestyle, right? I grew up alcoholic addict father, then the divorce, and then living with my mom, and in and out of jails, institutions, prisons, right? So I was always used to the chaos. So I'd continue even when shit wasn't chaotic. I got to pick a fight, right? And I got sick and tired of being angry and miserable and hateful and depressed, that I had to make positive changes in my life to have that positive environment. And law of attraction, I love it. Like if you ever watched a movie on it or read a book on the law of attraction, what you think, what you feel, what you say is what's going to get brought in your life. So if you try to keep a positive, speak positive, think positive, act positive, right? You're going to attract those same positive people or the people in the dark spot that you can bring into that atmosphere. But if you're always negative, think negative, speak negative, like you're going to attract that same type of people because that's the environment you're creating.
Yep, 100%. Go ahead, Josie.
But if you're trying to create positive and have that environment, you can also be used and abused, and people pretend and act like that's what they really want, and then do a complete fucking flip of a switch like that if something else triggers them and you're being 100% positive, and then they go negative and they want to continue the bullshit and the attitude and not walk away and do the right thing and do the opposite and keep going at it.
Well, see, you're
So
always gonna have
not
people
always
like that.
an easy thing. Yeah,
That is true. It's not easy, but you're always gonna have people like that. And as long as
I know.
if we are aware of that, we're gonna run into those people. We can start learning the correct, um, or a better defense mechanism to protect ourselves, not in an unhealthy way, but in a healthy way. Because a lot of the defense mechanisms we learned in our addiction or childhood or whatever, a lot of those were unhealthy. That's why we went to our addiction in a lot of cases. So now it's time for us to learn new mechanisms to protect ourselves and to grow into human beings that don't push pain onto other people just because they're causing pain to us.
That's exactly right. I would say one thing that I've done in the past that I'm definitely not doing this time, no matter what anyone says, is because it's where I fucked up a million times, is I'm sorry no one's telling me that people that are family to me, no matter what, that I have to stop talking to them at all for anyone, unless they're unhealthy for me and there's proof that they're unhealthy. Yeah, they're not going anywhere. The person can learn to deal with it or they can leave me alone because I'm not doing anything wrong to anyone
Mhm.
but being safe.
Well, if anyone doesn't uh-oh.
One more thing. So, on being able to grow and change and seeing the flip side of the coin, right? The thing is, like, we can spot those unhealthy relationships and those friendships because we were those unhealthy people, right? So we have a pretty good judge of character on our own. I mean, of course, we want to be sympathetic and try, you or me, let me try to help you out. But if the patterns keep repeating themselves and they're not in a program to help themselves or willing to help themselves, then change isn't going to happen, kind of like what we were talking about earlier. So we are the best judge of character to see who is helping and speaking good things into our life and who is holding us back and creating the drama and the chaos.
Not always, though, but that's why we have family and other supports that help us and make sure if we're fucking up, they tell us. Because I would say I have a
Mhm.
couple of those in my life, and that's kind of why I'm sitting where I am right this second and not doing shit.
It's very, very important to have a community around you that can hold you accountable. Go ahead, Chris.
It's always easy to cut people out of your life. Just saying.
Yeah,
And
working on it, trying my best.
I think the experience with that, right, is the more we work on ourselves and the better we become and the longer we have in recovery and in sobriety and living a healthy life. Because just because you're sober doesn't mean you're making changes or living healthily. Is the easier it is for us to spot that out. Because in early recovery, I thought anybody in recovery was okay.
It's true. And I dealt with that in my beginning of sobriety and even in parts of my sobriety where I was like, oh, well, these people are fine, they're in AA or they're in recovery, so how bad could they be? And then I had epiphanies with, oh well, they're addicts, so they aren't healthy mentally, emotionally. We're all dealing with a very, very exact similar problem. But yeah, so being able to protect yourself in some way. Kat, just so you know, we're actually about to close the meeting, but I can, it's fine. The meeting times change for Mondays because I'm overseas. But there are meetings Wednesday and Friday, at the normal time. 8, 8,
8 turtles.
8
Rooms open at
on
8.
the East Coast.
8:30.
But if
Yep.
you miss the meetings, we have a YouTube channel that has all our Zoom meetings on and has the meetings that were held at the gathering on. I just posted the link in our chat. It's also on our website too. All the meeting times and everything's on our website, jugglosandrecovery.com. But so far, the meeting topics have been, where do we start? Exposure to triggers, mental and emotional trauma triggers, how people use the word trigger to as an excuse to go back out. Step 10, and then also what was the last one I just rolled? Close mindset. So you can share about anything you want. Those were the quite a few topics that we've had in this meeting. We were attempting, well, we didn't attempt, we did use our new way to choose our meeting. I want to share my screen so you can see it. So this right here is what we use. Me, Chris, D, another guy, Ty, all helped with this. So we just rolled for a meeting talk. And that's where we came up with all this stuff. So triggers, exposure to triggers, using the word trigger as an excuse to go back out. Step 10, and having a closed mindset causing roadblocks in your addiction, holding you back from personal growth. Those were the topics today. So if you got anything to say there, Miss Cat, you're more than welcome to voice it.
Did you say one of the topics? Sorry, my service is bad, so it's cutting in and out. But did you say one of the topics was triggers?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So
Triggers don't really bother me anymore.
Go ahead.
Hey, Kat. While I was in recovery, and well, I'm still in recovery, but like early stages of recovery, I was faced with triggers all over. Like the smell of grass for some reason triggered me, and different just things I didn't think would really bother me. But now that I'm, going on 7 years clean, my triggers are less. Like I don't have many triggers as I did back then. Like still don't bother me anymore. I guess because I'm just so hell bent on just staying sober and just trying to get out of that life. But I figured, when my dad died, that would be really, really hard for me. But actually, it didn't really trigger anything. Like I didn't get the urge to use or anything like that. So, but that doesn't mean that I'm not going to have triggers down the road. And I'm pretty sure I will get some type of triggers as I, move on. But like, they're not as bad as they used to be. But like used to, the simplest, smallest things would trigger me.
Yeah,
Um,
that's one of the things, and what we were talking about, what we realized is a lot of the triggers are due to trauma that we've had in the past, which cause
mhm,
those mental and emotional breaks in our mind. Um, the flip side to that topic was how people use the trigger excuse to go back out. And instead of doing what we've all done in this room and not go back out and just actually heal from our triggers or find out why we have those triggers and work on them, um, they just use it as an excuse to go back out because they just
yeah.
weren't ready to stay clean and sober. But I'm happy you got to at least come to a meeting. So,
Yeah, I didn't realize
so
you had a meeting until I got on Facebook.
yeah, that's all good. I'll make sure Stacy sends you the link to the online meetings website. We have a
Okay.
page on our website that has all the meeting codes and everything. Because it's me, Chris,
Mike.
and Bryant who run the meetings right now. With that, I'm gonna close the meeting because we have to deal with some business stuff real quick. So I'm gonna close the meeting. I put the link to the YouTube channel that has all our meeting recordings in the chat. And it's also linked on our website, jugglesandrecovery.com. So I believe no matter how long the road, if we walk together, we will get there. Even though we will face some of the darkest evil ever seen, we will face it as a community and stand fearless in its path. Nothing will stop us. With the help of our family and community, we will overcome the persecution and tribulations that life may cast from time to time. To the ones who still suffer and haven't found the path to serenity and community, we will continue to search for you and help you no matter your ailment. We carry our stories and messages to everyone who will listen. As the sun descends and night becomes, we arise to take the path.